After 24 hours of hibernation, the Arizona Cardinals made a couple roster moves yesterday. What does it mean? What's next? And we say goodbye to 5-5, where he signs for a monster contract with an AFC West team. And I think that Bo and I have the perfect replacement for AJ Green on the outside for the Arizona Cardinals. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Giddy up.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Follow him at Bob Brack. Follow me at Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen each and every day. Free and available on all platforms. Also on YouTube. Rocking and rolling. Over 2,100 subscribers. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Thank you. You, specifically. Thank you for those listening out there. Jam show again today. Cardinals, after 24 hours of no moves, make a couple moves. Not sure how minor they are, how major they could become, but it's two names that fill needs that the Arizona Cardinals have, which is important. Chandler Jones is a member of the Oakland Raiders, signs for a sweet lot of cheese. Is that what I said yesterday? I mean, he signed for a lot of money, and there's no way the Arizona Cardinals could have matched it. And there's a free agent wide receiver. As of about, full disclosure, 3.5 minutes before we record this podcast, that would be perfect in Arizona, even though he wouldn't be able to wear his original number if he were to sign here. Jeff Gladney, 25-year-old corner, signed to a 2-year deal coming over from Minnesota. Seems like over the last couple of years, the Cardinals have just swapped players with the Minnesota Vikings. Patrick Peterson going, Mason Cole going, now Jordan Hicks. Jeff Gladney signed a 2-year deal. This fills a need in some capacity. Our boy Luke Braun over at Locked On Vikings had up and down things to say about him. We're not going to discuss the off the field things. We're going to talk about football specifically. And all we know is the corner at a TCU, 25 years old, not 35. And I think that's a win. And then the Cardinals bring back Maxx Williams on a 1-year deal. The reason why I prefaced it the way that I did was both of these gentlemen could have huge impacts on this roster, or they could just be guys that suit up on Sundays. We don't really know, even though Maxx Williams had a huge impact on this team before getting injured midway through last season. So thoughts on checking a box with a corner, even though he's not potentially a high-impact one, and bringing Maxx Williams back, fan favorite, a guy that runs really weird, and a guy that's one of the best blocking tight ends in football.
Yeah, he runs like a Lego man. Very short strides, but he did show just exponential growth as far as his receiving game kind of became the forgotten man as far as opposing defenses, and he benefited from that. And Maxx Williams was looking great, looking for a career year before he suffered the injury last season, but it also turned into the Arizona Cardinals going out and getting Zach Ertz, and now they're both a part of the same tight end room. And man, how far have we come, Alex, from one ESPN pundit ranking the Arizona Cardinals tight end room the worst, by far, the worst room in all of the NFL. And now I think that they have a very strong tight end room because what Zach Ertz brings as far as his playmaking ability, and Maxx Williams, who's been in the last 5 seasons a 70-grade run blocker. I think you get kind of the best of both worlds. I like what the Arizona Cardinals are doing with the tight end position. As far as Gladney goes, what Luke Braun broke down as far as a scouting report was a guy who was he was kind of thrown to the fire like Byron Murphy, early, a first-round pick at a TCU, had to play in a very tough defense for Mike Zimmer, a lot of snaps, and was not successful his only rookie season for the Minnesota Vikings, but that's expected. But as far as the skill set, it's there. He just has to develop. He's a tough, hard as nails guy. That's what Braun called him. He's country strong, according to other stuff I read about him. Plays bigger than his size. He's at 6 feet. He's ran a sub 4.5 40, and I think that you have to be excited. I think he fits in with the style of play that Byron Murphy Jr. and Marco Wilson bring to the table. Not shy of contact. You're not going to see the P3 delays that you're used to seeing in the desert from the cornerback position. So, nice piece. RJ from Yuma hit me up. He said, if this is the only move, yeah, this is a disaster. But look, rest assured, these aren't the only moves the Arizona Cardinals are going to make. They're going to continue to reshape this roster, and this is a good adding depth move. We'll see what they decide to do going forward at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I mean, it did the cornerback position specifically. Sure, Maxx Williams, great signing, and I've softly pounded the table for more of a Kyle Juszczyk role in blocking schemes for him, moving him into the backfield to kind of give Kyler Murray. And we've seen this across the NFL where running backs have kind of lined up a couple yards ahead of a quarterback in shotgun to try and have some sort of different blocking schemes that keeps the opposing defense on edge and on their toes. Maxx Williams it's going to be fine. He'll probably sign with the Cardinals. He'll probably retire a Cardinal if the money's right, because he is invaluable on the inside and definitely blocking. Kelvin Beachum could have used his help. Josh Jones could have used his help down the stretch last year when he was out. I'm cool with Gladney. I get it. It's a light check of the box, and I feel like there's a couple corners out there that are elder statesmen, definitely more so than a 25-year-old, that the Cardinals could bring in. Not one, but two. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, Casey Hayward, those are the two names that come to mind. Casey Hayward's been a journeyman. He was a top corner when he was with the Chargers. Stephon Gilmore, that would take pressure off of everybody. Everybody in the secondary. And I don't think Stephon Gilmore is going to garner that much of a contract. It could be a 1 year, $8 or $10 million deal like Patrick Peterson got in Minnesota. You'd happily pay him, even though he's a little bit more of an advanced age than P2. And when you have a guy like Casey Hayward, who had a lot of injury concerns early on, he's played very well when he's been on the field. So I feel like one, if not two of those guys, you'd finally have a strength in the secondary like the Cardinals once did.
If you couple Byron Murphy Jr. with Stephon Gilmore, yes, that absolutely becomes a strength. No doubt about it. And then the other guys are just, filling in the gaps in between. When you go to 5-6 corners on the field and you've got guys like Gladney and Marco Wilson who are incredibly athletic, they just are, underdeveloped right now. And a regular snap role is too much for those guys at this stage in the career. But if you bring in, that's why I think what the blueprint that was put in place by the Bengals last offseason when they went out and they got proven veteran guys. Sure, they're not perfect as far as corners go. They're not lockdown guys by any sense, but they're legit. And the Arizona Cardinals would take what it was an absolute just liability, and it would turn into a strength. They still have to figure out the pass rush. Like, I don't care if you have Darrelle Revis out there, you still need to create a pass rush and still need to figure out what to do as far as the front seven. But the cornerback room would look significantly better with those two veterans that you mentioned, Gilmore and Hayward.
Right. And the idea is that even though they've kind of stood pat with bringing in, talent from other teams from last year in free agency, and they've really only re-signed their own, there's still some guys to hit. I mean, if you want to make a splash, Darius Smith is still out there. He's going to be expensive, but the salary cap is going to balloon next year. They're going to have a lot of money off the books, and especially if they restructured this year more so than just DeAndre Hopkins and Justin Pugh, you could bring in a guy that's going to be an impact maker right away, immediately. And that's something that you won't get in the draft more than not. The Cardinals, when was the last time the Cardinals paid a free agent? Like a free agent paid somebody. Jordan Hicks.
Yeah, Jordan
was
Hicks.
The last one, and that wasn't even that. Like, that was coming out. Like, that wasn't even that big of a splash. That was the thing, because he had major injury concerns before that, and he got a fairly team friendly deal for how well he played in Philadelphia. Everybody does, like, teams do this all the time. Look at what Oakland just did for a 30-plus-year-old dude. We're going to talk about that next. They gave him a whole lot of stinky cheese to go play in Vegas. Alex Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. I mean, it's going to take, that's a lot of cake that he got, Chandler Jones. We'll talk about that next, and I'll get Bo's thoughts on it. It's that time of year again. It's college basketball's tournament is today. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, BetOnline.net's the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, man. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. Second segment. I mean, he got so much money. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Make sure you're following Locked On NFL. Bo does his on Monday. Tyler Rowland of Locked On Titans and myself do it today. We're covering the best stories around the NFL every Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you get podcasts. Bo, so before we move on here, do you think, like, so far, how is Steve Keim done? Like, is it just incomplete because this is yesterday was technically the first day of free agency, and we've had 72 hours, and he's not, just because they're not Jacksonville because they don't have the money to spend, and who they signed is still up in the air for how much money they were given. You just give them an incomplete.
Yeah, until the Gladney move, I think the Arizona Cardinals were one of 9 teams, according to Field Yates, that didn't acquire a player outside of the building up until that, minor signing. Like, I'm not saying that Gladney's going to be a major player for this team going forward, but that's pretty shocking, especially since the last 2 off seasons we've seen Steve Keim be very aggressive, and he was more aggressive. It was different. It was apples and oranges as far as the off season because of the cap, where they were cap wise. And he got pre-free agency guys like J.J. Watt. I think that I'm going to give him a C right now. But look, it's just like Alex when he would talk to his professor. Like, you can perform a lot better than this, buddy. Like, your effort level sucks. If you just tried at this, you could probably do a little bit better, and you could get towards a B. Like, I don't think does A exist? Like, is there a free agent available, or is there enough guys to fill in the gaps for them to get to a very successful grade at this point? But if he gets to a B, and you kept the guys in place that you needed to keep in place with the Zach Ertz and the James Connors of the world, plus some other guys like Dennis Garnett, that is it in what he was able to restructure and get them in a place to add. I think he could get to a solid B. I think your mic is off.
Yeah, he can get to a solid B. I just don't. There's a lot of moves that need to be made that can't just happen here. They don't have the money. I mean, doesn't matter. We're not going to talk about why. I think if they can sign a corner, and like if they were to sign Zadarius Smith, I would give him an A-. You know why? Even though effort doesn't start with an A, I give him a damn A for effort. Do something. It's like that meme with whoever it is with the stick, like poking the ground. Do something. Like, that's what you want. Julio Jones, they're going to sign Julio. It's either going to be Julio Jones or, which we'll talk about in the third segment, or Jackrabbit Jenkins. Those are Steve Keim's specials. 33 years old, guys that were all pro at one point, and now are looking for a paycheck and can still kind of do something on the field. And even though Julio Jones missed the majority of last season, we'll talk about that next segment. Chandler Jones is getting a lot of cheese, man. Okay. It's 3-year, 51. I think it's at 3 years, 51 mil, 17 mil a year to go to play for the Raiders. So it's going to be him and Maxx Crosby. Maxx Crosby became a fan favorite in like 10 minutes. Yeah. People didn't know who he was, and then he knew who he was, and then he just obliterated Kyler Murray in the Pro Bowl. And he's becoming one of the better edge guys in the NFL. And him coupled with Chandler Jones, cool. I don't know. The Cardinals were never going to give him that much money, so it makes sense that they're not going to bring him back.
Yeah. In addition to, I just saw this because things became official as we record this, but Jordan Phillips was released today. I don't know if we knew that, but as part of the moves with Gladney and Williams. But yeah, I mean, is Maxx Crosby? He's probably Mike Mayock's best addition during his tenure before he got fired.
Oh yeah,
Get a 4th round pick. I don't know.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I can't remember.
it's like now you need 2 pass rushers. How many do the Arizona Cardinals have? J.J. Watt, and he might play more in the interior of the line. You've got Marcus Golden, who had double-digit sacks, so you can count him. But you need to they need to bring in some bodies, and if they don't want to suffer a significant blow to their pass rush game. Is it going to be like a Derek Barnett who hasn't been that productive as far as racking up sacks, former first rounder? I know he had the big play in the Super Bowl, but as far as consistency, he's got some. As far as the next gen stats, he's got some impressive stats. But the Arizona Cardinals need to aggressively pursue somebody at the outside linebacker, the edge position, to fill that void. I agree. I think that Chandler Jones, the Cardinals were priced out on him. I don't know if they ever find that middle ground, even if they start negotiating before last season to get to a number that makes sense for them at his age.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing. Like, there were a couple options. Like, teams that wanted to keep Chandler Jones, like, if you were on another squad, you would have extended him last season. Like, you never let a player really go into their last year of the deal if you want to keep them on the roster. Like, officially. They could have added 2 more years, made the cap hit lower, maybe added somebody else last season that they couldn't afford. But it seemed like this was it, and this is just the next one of guys that they price themselves out because of the mistakes that they've made. Like, I don't think that this is...
I just don't think so. I mean...
Well, do you think that this is, like, way too much? Like, say they had drafted... So, like, say that they had a nest egg. Okay, say that there were contracts that were coming up and they were able to fit him into the salary cap at this number. Do you think it would have been a good business decision to retain him for this number?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, it's the fact that they don't have a safety net, that's another issue. But so this was a good business decision to let him walk.
It was. But it doesn't mean that your team doesn't take a hit production-wise.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but to go maybe looking underneath rocks for production, and that's what they're going to have to do. And Steve Keim, we talked about, do we trust him or not? We're going to have to trust him as far as finding production from some unlikely sources. And that's the thing. It's like there just wasn't going to be that number that made sense for both sides. And I just think if he's going to sign a 3-year deal and he's going to make an average of $17 million per season, that's just the Arizona Cardinals at this stage. They just can't afford that. And I can't say that that's on the franchise. I think that you just got prime Chandler Jones and you got him for a 2nd-round pick, and he started in the NFL in sacks during his tenure here, only behind Aaron Donald and T.J. Watt. It's like you got the best of Chandler Jones. That's great. Like, good job. Now, like, maybe he turns into a compensatory pick. I don't know. It depends on what they do the rest of the offseason, and then see what he looks like in the silver and black.
Yeah, because what we do know coming up, and if you do any mock drafts, you'll know how many picks there are in between having one and not having one for 2 rounds in the 4th and the 5th round. The Arizona Cardinals are going to be facing in about a month from now, where they're going to have 100 picks in the 6th and 7th round. But in the meat, find a star, throw a dart at a wall. But if you have good scouts and you have a good GM who can draft, you can find real talent in the 4th and 5th round. The Cardinals are completely devoid of that because they will not have a draft pick. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked On Cardinals. Should the Cardinals sign Julio Jones? Spoiler alert. Yes, damn it. That's next. RockAuto.com. Rock Auto gets you out of jams. Rock Auto is the easiest thing in the world to maneuver around and to utilize. RockAuto.com always has the parts you need. Okay, so you don't have to go to a chain storefront and be like, yo, where's this part, man? And then they'll say, oh, we don't have it. Well, I can order it. It'll take 2 weeks. Oh, and it's going to be 40% more than what it would be on rockauto.com. I'm good. Go to rockauto.com. Their prices are reliably low. They're a family-owned business. They've been online for 20 years. They treat you like family. You know, they're not going to upcharge you because you're family. All you have to do is go in the search box, paint, carpet, whatever for your make and model. And then 2 days later, 4 days later, boom, it's on your front doorstep. So much easier than going to a chain storefront. Price is reliably low. They're going to treat you like family. They've been online for 20 years. That's all you need to know. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, locked on in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices. All the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. Should the Cardinals sign Julio Jones, who was released yesterday by the Tennessee Titans? Yes. I'm going to go first. I'm going to tell you why I'm going to go first, because I'm hosting today. The thing is that if you were to make me place a wager on betonline.ag, who would have better production in this offense, Julio Jones or AJ Green, when the year's over, including everything? We're not doing Madden with injuries turned off. I would probably say AJ Green, because AJ Green, injury-wise, is a lower risk at this point in his career than Julio Jones, and was forever seemingly. Julio Jones, if you ever draft him in fantasy, it was always questionable with a leg, questionable with a hamstring, questionable with a knee. It was always waist down, and it was every week that there was an issue. And he is an absolute specimen. When you look at it, like the catch that he made in the Super Bowl is like, that's top 5 catches for me ever. Along the sideline, long, I think it was third and whatever, 30-yard catch where he got his feet in. Everybody said it was incomplete because nobody on earth should be able to catch a ball like that. I still think the Cardinals should sign him, and I think they should give him a 1-year, $8 million deal and have a great physical therapy regimen with him in the offseason. Like, is this not the Steve Keim special 2022 version? Is it not?
It's very reminiscent, no doubt about it. And it's not Julio's fault that the Falcons' offense went backwards after that play, didn't it? And then they ended up having to give the ball back to the Patriots. Look, it'd just be fun. Can I just say that? It'd just be fun.
We're allowed to have fun.
Yeah, we've watched. I mean, sure, it's playing Madden. Sure, as far as is he a shell of himself? Yeah, probably. Or could he be Julio Jones? Could he be Larry Fitzgerald and have a resurgence at this age and stage in his career? Not likely. But if they can somehow James Conner him and get him back to where he's playing consistent ball, and I know James Conner missed some time for the Cardinals last season, but he didn't miss as much as he did the last 2 seasons previous in Pittsburgh. If you can get Julio Jones to playing that opposite DeAndre Hopkins role, if you don't sign up for it, I don't want to be friends with you because you don't like fun. You just don't. You're just a stick in the mud. You're a stick in the mud. There's other options out there. Like would you take him over Allen Robinson?
Well,
I mean, if they just make it work cap wise. I mean, you and I aren't capologists, but like if they could get A-Rob or if they could get Juju, is he more intriguing than those 2 options? And I don't mean like this is us speculating. We don't know if there's any interest in any of the trio.
I mean, Allen Robinson the gap is a lot wider for how much more positive output he could lend to a wide receiver room than Julio Jones at this point in Julio Jones' career, I think. I mean, how old is Allen Robinson? Like 28?
20,
even though he's been around forever, he's 28. I mean, he turns 29 before the season starts. That's a lot different than 32. It's like, and Allen Robinson has had his injury concerns as well. Allen Robinson was like chemically injured being in Chicago. And I was going to use a different thing there, but I don't want to be non-PC. Like, he was chemically something because of how bad the quarterback play was there. The play
calling was atrocious.
Yeah.
They put him in the slot for the most part. And it's like, what was Justin Fields' strength? He was throwing the ball down the field. Like, what the hell were they doing?
Yeah.
But also, there's reports that he quit on the team, and that's not great either. But here's the thing about
it's not an original.
Here's what the free agents that you're going to get. Any single one of these people that the Arizona Cardinals bring on board, there's going to be red flags. This is the next wave. Like, the top tier guys are gone. The guys that you shouldn't even have to worry about. Like, there's going to be red flags. And Steve Keim's used to doing this, taking big swings. A guy like Julio, as far as the work ethic, as far as the skill set, like, I don't doubt that. But, the ability to stay on the field the last 2 seasons is It's tough. But I'm here for fun at this stage. And if they do need, like when we kind of look at the priorities now, it still is corner. It still is pass rush. It still is playmaking opposite DeAndre Hopkins. That hasn't changed.
And I mean, I wonder if he had such a bad year and a half to where you can get him for what you got AJ Green for last year.
Yeah.
Like the pedigree is gone, right?
Mm-hmm.
The pedigree's gone, but Steve Keim special. This is where players come back to get nursed back to health. I mean, but his age is like this is a perfect leverage situation for the Cardinals. You can validate signing him to a 1-year deal. You can validate not giving him $10 million, and you can validate letting him walk if you get outbid. Like it's a perfect situation that you have to kick the tires on. Is there any reason why you'd bring AJ Green back $3 million for a year? Like I feel like he got a lot. Fans are very, very tough on players a lot of the time. Okay. Again, he had played 6 games with Kyler Murray. And who knows if that was Kyler Murray's fault or his fault that he didn't turn around against the Packers. And that's also not the reason for the downfall towards the tail end of the season. Okay. That was one play. What I remember is AJ Green bailing out Kyler Murray a lot on 3rd and longs, 2nd and longs, throwing the ball down the field where AJ Green made miraculous acrobatic catches with 2 defenders around him. That's what I remember. And you know what you can't get enough of? That. I'd rather have him than Antoine Wesley. And they decided Antoine Wesley was a 1-year. I mean, it was a minor deal. With how silly money is now, offering him $3 million to stay around to be the 3rd option. Like I don't see it. Like I know we're pivoting here from Julio Jones. Same thing. It's the same thing. Like I don't think that having a 6'4" outside wide receiver who can catch everything still would be a bad thing to take a $3 million stab at.
And you would hope that just another year and a full offseason in the organization would remedy the communication errors that were so brutal for this offense and one cost them the game against Green Bay. That's going to be key for this. If you're skeptical about it, I think that you have every right to be. I think that there's been some sort of disconnect for AJ Green as far as him and his quarterback the last couple of seasons, because he hasn't been the same guy that you could rely on who was a top 5 fantasy guy for so long. But look, 800 yards, 3 touchdowns. He played that outside receiver position better than we've seen anybody in this Cliff offense play. So look, if he's a guy, if he's a complimentary piece, but if he's the second option in the wide receiver core, because I think Zach Ertz is probably your second option.
Yeah.
If he's your second guy, I think you're in trouble.
Everybody should be fired if he's the second guy. And just a little note, Zadarius Smith just signed a $35 million deal with the Baltimore Ravens. So that makes everything that I just talked about with Zadarius Smith null and void. If the Cardinals... if the Cardinals sign Von Miller or something like that, I got to put a moratorium on myself. We're only 3 days into free agency. Alex, Clancy, Bo Brack, Locked on Cardinals. We'll talk to you tomorrow.